Our kind and gracious Father in heaven, we're thankful for all the many blessings. We're grateful for the Sabbath day that we've enjoyed today and the opportunity we've had to worship Thee. Lord, we'd ask us as we meet here this evening, that Thy Spirit will be here with us. And we'll be prompted to Thy will, and that we will have our hearts open and softened, and that we can speak the words that are on our minds and be transparent. Lord, we're grateful for all the many blessings that Thou hast given to us, and for the sacrifice of our Savior, Jesus Christ, and the opportunity it provides for us to continually grow and repent and grow closer to Thee. Lord, we're grateful for everything we have, and we say these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Well, and thanks again for meeting with us.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I guess one of the things that I want to do, the last time I met with you, that was really the first time I met with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think my objective at that time was really to kind of listen and try to understand kind of where you are. Some of the things that I heard there during the meeting, I guess I wanted to have them confirmed again.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess maybe where I wanted to start was kind of what are the things that you do believe? I remember Cody in our meeting saying you didn't know if there was a God, or you didn't know if you believed in it anymore. One of the things you said is that you really wanted the church to be true.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, as I thought back about what we talked about and stuff, I was just left to think, well, I wonder what is it that they do? What do you believe in? I would ask the question, do you believe in God and in His Son, Jesus Christ?
I believe in unconditional love.
Do you believe that there's a supreme being?
I have hope that there's a supreme being. I don't know that He's an anthropomorphic white male.
Okay.
Me.
I have a hard time understanding this mortal experience without divine design. That being said, one of the things that I've learned through this process is that I don't know a whole lot. So I hope for things. I hope there's a God. I hope that there's an afterlife. I hope that my family and I can be together forever. I believe that Jesus did live on the earth. I believe He was an exceptional person. I believe that He was a radical, a revolutionary in His time. And the Bible documents that. I don't know if I believe that He atoned for my sins and for the sins of every person on this earth. So,
Why is that?
Why is that?
Do you believe the Bible?
I believe that the Bible is it's a flawed record, unfortunately. And even the church admits that. And I think that the Bible is a series of oral traditions passed down over decades and centuries. And that even the Bible, even the four Gospels don't agree on exactly what happened. So even just taking the four Gospels, it's hard to nail down exactly what happened. There are certainly consistencies, but there are inconsistencies. So I believe the Bible is a record written decades after the life of Christ. But I don't know how much we can depend on the nitty-gritty details, because again, it was oral traditions passed down over generations, and then finally
it was translated by various people in various times, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and we've learned about that through people like Bart Ehrman, the historical Jesus, and understanding that narrative with the cultural and governmental priorities, and understanding the culture of that time and the writers who wrote the books, and it really paints a different picture than what we had understood before. Really taking, we knew very little about the Bible, come to find out. So we've really enjoyed and found it fascinating how little we actually knew about the Bible.
Well, the thing that's interesting is that the people who actually crucified Jesus Christ, who lived at His time, and weren't judging based upon historical texts decades old.
Mm-hmm.
They were judging based upon what they lived.
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't believe. So, I mean, that still can happen. And so I don't. So, all right. What about? Do you believe that there's a plan of salvation?
I hope so. I mean, it'd be great. I think I told you last time, I think that the LDS Church answers the existential questions of life better than anybody. I mean, again, I want it to be true. I want the church to be true. I want those answers to be the right answers. Because to my brain, which is still very Mormon in many ways, it satisfies those, like, can I be with my family forever? And the LDS Church says yes, but so does almost every other church say yes, you can be with your family. Of course, the nuances and the details are different, right? But I think that the LDS answers provide more hope for, it provides hope for people who didn't have the chance to learn the gospel. You know what I mean? It
closes some of those gaps.
It closes some of those gaps. And so, I hope there is. I want there to be a plan of salvation. Again, I have a hard time understanding this experience without it being part of something bigger.
Well, and I think that's good that you have that hope still. And you're familiar with the Book of Mormon, and you're familiar with what Alma talks about when he says, if there's nothing more that you can do but have a desire to know, let that begin to work within you. I understand. And I guess the next question I would ask is, restoration of the gospel. What is your belief or feeling about that? And Joseph Smith's calling as a prophet.
I don't believe he was called as a prophet.
You don't think he was inspired to? You don't believe in the first vision?
I don't. I believe he probably had some sort of a born again experience where he felt he had some special experience, but I don't believe he saw and talked to God and Christ, unfortunately.
Okay. And
you do an answer, so I don't mean to.
In the Book of Mormon?
I think it's a 19th century creation. I don't think it's a record of ancient people in America.
Okay. So, one of the things you talked about too the last time is, the way that you were all in to the church at one point. In fact, it was one of and you even shared it with me. Leah said that Cody was all in his mission. He was so dedicated. He ran from door to door and did all those kind of things. You were an assistant to the president. Was there a time in your life when you knew that the church was true? And these questions that I've asked you were true?
Yeah, for the first 40 years of my life, if you ask me that question, I frequently testified in sacrament meeting and other times in gospel doctrine class, time and time again, that I know that the church is true.
And that was based on what?
Feelings. And what I've been taught for years, since I was 18 months old.
But it's also based on some of the experiences that you had, right?
Sure.
That convinced you that was true, enough that it caused you to serve a mission and desire to share that.
Well, and like I had shared in our meeting before, when in any given religion, right, if you're Muslim and you have these beautiful, wonderful spiritual experiences, it's going to confirm that you're true. And that's why I mentioned that spiritual witness video, because you can take someone in any religion. It's what's the term? Bias? Confirmation bias, okay? So if you're Muslim, or if you're Jewish, or if you're whatever, evangelical Christian, or if you're Buddhist, based on your narrative, based on your cultural construct, your upbringing, all of that, the experiences that you have will confirm to you that you're doing it the right way, that you're in the right path, that you're in the right religion. We feel, or I feel, I'll speak for myself, just as even more connected to whatever source of love and goodness is out there. I've never felt more whole, more at peace, more grounded in my life. I truly haven't. And I think believing Mormons would say, well, you're being fooled, and they can say that. It's just not my truth. It's just not my truth. So yes, when I was Mormon, I would attribute this blessing or this to Mormonism, right? If I were Hindu, I would attribute certain blessings and certain experiences to Hinduism. And now I'm not Mormon, and I still have wonderful blessings and wonderful experiences. And I attribute it to goodness and light and love and purpose and meaning.
So what is the religion that is it just love?
Where am I at?
Yeah. You use that term a lot, which it's an essential attribute that we all need to have, for sure.
Yeah, I think when you're stripped down and when you realize that when you step out of Mormonism and you realize that so many of your friends were conditional friends, that they will say they never want to talk to you again, they will block you, they will spread rumors about you. You realize you cannot control the narrative about you. You realize that church leaders, the people you looked up to, are going to give talks to the worldwide membership of the church that are dismissive and unkind, that they're covering up the narrative. They're trying to protect the tribe, and so they other and they dismiss. You get to a place, you go through the darkest place that you've ever been, and you feel so betrayed, and you realize, to crawl out of this place, the number one thing Christ taught was love, unconditional love. And it is so, it's so appalling, really, to be in this space and to see how across the board are so many Mormons getting this wrong. Because I sit here and I say, I honor your path. My best friend, I talked to her today. I've never said anything to her. I love you. I honor you. I'll always honor you. Always. And well, my best friend's still my best friend, thankfully.
That's good to know.
But the stories you hear, the things you face, it feels very much to me.
You know what? And you gave me that list or that sheet of all those things that you got, and it pains me to read those. Seriously, it does.
By the way, I took the time to read them as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it, I wish that people weren't that way, that they wouldn't say those kinds of things. So I feel for those people. And our desire is not to drive them away. Our desire is to meet with them and to help resolve some of these issues and questions that they have. And so, I'm sorry that you've had those kinds of experiences where you felt othered. That's certainly not the intent. Okay?
And I'm sorry about that as well, and I believe everything you say about the interactions you've had, but I've had so many people come and talk to me about, hey, how are Cody and Leah doing? What can we do to help them?
Yeah.
You get both. You get both.
So, people are imperfect. None of us are perfect. But I do think that you might not see all of it, and you do have a lot of support and love from people in the ward.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of them realize that they're probably not in a place where they can help you right now, so they are kind of standing off and waiting, but there is a lot of love for you, your family.
And that standing off could be, I think, sometimes misinterpreted as maybe a lack of not caring, but they really do.
Yeah, and we really haven't really sensed that in the ward. I'm talking more at large with other relationships. It's not been within the ward, but it's a common thread for most people. And sure, there's members who are just lovely and wonderful, but I sent you that talk, that open letter to Elder Rumlin. Those kind of talks just really truly send shockwaves through this community of just like, we have already felt so betrayed by the leadership of the church. So to do a whack-a-mole and to dismiss and to it's the most unkind thing that a leader of the church could do. And we have people joining groups left and right after talks like that. Like, I was struggling. I was trying to stay in the boat, but that talk kicked me out of the boat. I mean, tons of people, after a talk like that, they're out. They're like, that's it. There's no room for me. They're going to do a little video of whack-a-mole. They're going to dismiss me. They're going to other me. There's no room for my questions. It's not safe here. And so in support groups across the U.S., there's people coming in. That was it. That was the final straw, you know? Because it's like they lack faith. And that is, we have never tried to have more faith, you know?
And I think if Elder Renlund knew, or if he understood the pain that he was causing, I think he would be bothered by that.
But he's an apostle. He's supposed to be an apostle of Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you've listened to the talk, but it's really hurtful to people like us. You know, it blames people who are questioning or have doubts. It paints them as weak, as snake oil salesmen.
And maybe it puts everybody in the same pot. I mean, there's obviously a continuum of people, you know, that are in this pot.
And we don't need to dissect it. But
right.
I mean,
yeah. So anyway, I guess what I would say, and I hear what you say, Leah, about this. What did you call it? How the Hindus have the feeling. What was it? A faith.
It's confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. I hear what you say about that, but you know, some of the truths that we discover, and truth is truth. Mm-hmm. Okay, mm-hmm. And it's something that it's you know, President Kimball. I remember when I was on a mission, he gave a talk called "Absolute Truth," mm-hmm. And to me, that's what truth is. It you know, you can do all the scientific stuff you want to try to understand stuff, but truth is what is truth. It's a knowledge of things as they are now and as they always will be. That's what truth is. And some of that truth can only be discovered through an inquiry to our Heavenly Father. And I think Joseph Smith found that out when he said there was such a distortion or such a difference of opinions that the only way I could solve this was I couldn't solve it by looking in the Bible. The only way that I could solve it was to ask God. And in these things that we talk about, does God exist? The only way we can know that for sure is to ask and to feel. Does God have, did he create a plan of salvation? The only way that we can know that for sure is to ask. So now, we're encouraged to study. I mean, you know, to Oliver Cowdery, the Lord said, you got to study it out in your mind. And then ask me. When you look around the world, I mean, you even said it, when you look around the world, you see all these things, the creations and stuff, and it's like there has to be an intelligent creator. Everything testifies that. So that's a piece of evidence. And then from that, then you get that confirmed. And then it's that you hold on to. It's that the kind of experience that you had that caused you on your mission to run from door to door and to testify to the truthfulness of these things.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can I ask you both a question? Because I think what is really hard for people in our position, really, really hard, is that we sit with you, we honor you, we feel like you are good men doing good things, truly. And we were good people trying to do good things in the church. But you sit here and you talk about feelings, and feelings are actually not facts, they're feelings. And again, it goes back to, if I was Muslim, my feelings would lead me here, my feelings would lead me there. Feelings are actually not reliable. But my question to you guys is, have you read, what documents, books, resources, stories, what have you read about church history? Because it gets really sort of stifling to feel like we're having this circular conversation when it's like, you don't need to know the information. I don't know where you're at with it. But my question to you is, have you read the CES letter? Have you read all the footnotes in the CES letter? Have you read all the books that were used for that? Have you learned about, the top 50 issues with the Book of Mormon. Have you read books on that? Have you read The Letter to My Wife? Have you studied, the teachings of the Brigham Young? Have you read, and it's like, we sit here talking about feelings, but are we supposed to ignore all the facts, all the journals from Joseph Smith's, young wives? Are we supposed to say, yeah, we believe in a God who told Joseph Smith to force girls to marry him, saying an angel with a flaming sword was going to kill him if they didn't? It gets to feel frustrating, because it's like, we understand information that you may or may not understand. I don't know where you've gone with your research.
I've heard a lot of that stuff, and I've read some of the stuff. I haven't read it all.
So, but we have read book after book after book after book. We've listened to stories like Tom Phillips, Hans Matson. We've read the books of the older prophets. We've gone down the rabbit hole of, blacks in the priesthood. We've gone down the rabbit hole of all of these early people. We've read books on their lives. And so it's not a very productive conversation to talk about whether it's true or not if we're not at the same space with the information that is actually available and that isn't anti-Mormon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I guess what I would say is you call them feelings, and what I would call them is a confirmation. And it's left me with a knowledge that is undisputable, that is stronger than any knowledge that I can gain from reading stuff that's out there. And what I would say is, do I have a lot of questions? Absolutely, I do. But I don't have any doubts.
Okay. And the beauty is that I can honor that. I can say that's wonderful and that's beautiful, right? I'm grateful that you have, I'm glad for you that you have that. And I would never want you to not, my purpose is not to take that away from you or anybody in the church, right? That's really not what I want, because I want people to be happy. Mm-hmm. And I'll bet that those feelings that bring you to that truth in your life bring you happiness, right? And for me, for 40 years it did, right? It did, absolutely. I considered myself to be a happy Mormon. I was very comfortable. And that's why leaving the church, my lifestyle hasn't really changed, right? Because the Mormon lifestyle, however you want to define it, was very comfortable to me. And I think there's a lot of I've tried to take all the good from it that I can and keep it in our family. We have. So I don't want to dishonor that for you, but I think what Leah is saying is that for me and for us, that hasn't been our experience. I mean, so once it's like the saying, an honest man once he learns he's been misled, either seeks to be misled or seeks to be honest, right? And so that's where I arrived. I arrived at the place where I felt betrayed and misled. So, and I want to be an honest man. So I can either choose honesty or I can choose to just be misled. Right, and I want you to know that what I'm trying to do is to choose honesty for me and my family. And
I seek the same thing. And
I believe that. I know that both of you do. And the beauty of my path, and I was explaining this to my parents this weekend when I was in San Diego, what's beautiful for me is that I no longer have to discount the spiritual experiences of anybody else. I can say, that's beautiful and wonderful for you, and my Hindu friend, and my Catholic friend, their experiences are beautiful and wonderful, and no less valid or important than my journey or my path, right? And I guess that's what a lot of us crave. It's just the church won't validate us, right? The church doesn't validate us, and so you crave just in your relationships, just for people to create space, not just to refrain from judgment. You don't have to come with me. You don't have to agree with me. We can agree to disagree. But just don't look at me as crazy, deceived, misled, and a tool of Satan. That's what I want from my family and friends. And the problem is that I think that in the Word, most people think that we're misled. We've been deceived by Satan. Because that's what I thought of people who left the church. And so I'm projecting onto them that that's probably what they're feeling. I don't have no hard feelings for them that they feel that way. I understand exactly why they feel that way. I think it's a very unhealthy narrative that the church gives the members of the church, that anybody that would leave this church is misled or misguided, because I don't feel misled or misguided, and I don't feel like I am making a horrible misstep, because I have tried to be studious. I approached it as thoroughly as I possibly could, given the information that's available. And again, I tried to make for me the honest decision. It doesn't mean it's the right decision for you or for anybody in the church, but for me, at the position where I arrived, that was the right and honest decision to make. And frankly, I don't want to come back. Don't get me wrong. I want the church to be true. I wish the church were true. I've concluded that it's not. I think the evidence is quite convincing that the church is not what it claims to be. The one and only true church. Is it a good church? Absolutely. It's full of amazing people. Absolutely.
So what's the alternative, I guess?
To live my life the best I can.
But you talk about, you hope this is true because you want to live forever with your family. You know, and you talk about wanting these things.
I don't believe in a God who would say, well, either, the Muslim people have it right, or the 1.1% of Mormons on the earth, they've got it right and everyone else has got it wrong. This whole idea of, for me, this concept in my faith of families can be together forever, when on this side of it, it's actually really harmful, because now that I am seeing the destruction of that, what happens is, Mormonism teaches...
What do you mean the destruction of that?
So Mormonism teaches families can be together forever if everyone follows the path, everyone does it right, everyone holds to the rod, everyone believes in Mormonism, everyone does all these things, then your family can be together forever. But see, when we learn what we do and we make the decision that we do, then what it's causing is divorces, it's causing wedges in family relationships, it's causing all these awful things. And what I come to realize is, while a lot of churches teach you can be together forever, the only one that I know of that's actually teaching it with all of these asterisks that are almost impossible for any family with any number. I mean, what if you're gay?
They are impossible except for him.
Okay, but for me, I'm just saying, for me, I believe that the most powerful source of love in the world, wouldn't other people, 99.5% of the people on earth who are here, who don't, a vast majority of those who don't even know who Jesus Christ is, on different continents throughout the world, and even Christianity
But Leah, I mean, you know what the overall plan is. I mean, you've been taught it your whole life. Provision has been made to address all those things.
Yeah, I don't believe it anymore, based on what I've learned.
I know, but is there anybody else that teaches that?
Yeah, there's a lot of churches that teaches that.
That teaches how you can save those people. I mean, the Catholics, for example, if you're not baptized, you're in limbo for the rest of your life.
I don't want religion anymore. I don't want anybody to dictate to me how I should love, or who I should love, or how I should behave, because I feel like I can be a good moral judge in my life, and I can teach and train my kids to be the same in their lives.
And I think that's true. You can, and you've obviously done a good job with your children up to this point in time. But the question I would ask is, why did God create the world? Why did he go through all this intelligent design to create everything, then just to put people on it and say, whatever you guys want to do, love each other, and come back?
Yeah, I guess we're still grappling with some of those questions, right? Like, there's a lot, and that's part of it. This process is just learning to get comfortable with not knowing, and learning to be okay with that, and having hope. That's the best I can describe it as hope, because I don't know how, as Leah said, feelings are not reliable. They're easily massaged or influenced. They can be interpreted in so many different ways. It's not a reliable way to arrive at truth. So I feel like, I was on the LDS path until it came to a dead end for me and my family. And so now I've stepped off, and I don't want to get on another religious path. I believe that if there is a God, that he sees me and he sees us and he sees where we're at and what we've been through, and that we're trying to do good and be good. And I feel like if there's a God and a plan of salvation and eternal families, then we can as a family qualify for that by living our lives the best we can.
Well, and one of the fortunate things is he's the eternal judge. He decides, and nobody else does. And so, I mean, that's what we have. That's what we have our trust and faith in.
I heard somebody
So
once.
he will determine.
Yeah.
So, sorry, you were going to say something.
Somebody once shared an analogy that I think it was really impactful for me, and maybe it helps you understand kind of where we're at and what we're doing. Is that, it's like you're raised in the church and you're taught everything through the LDS, through the Mormon lens, everything. You view life, religion, spirituality, experiences, everything through that lens. It's impossible, at least my experience was, it was impossible to not look at everything through that lens. Because it was my everything, it was my world, right? It's not the case for everybody. I think for both of us it was. And it's like a globe, right? Like a crystal ball through which you're viewing and interpreting everything, if you will. And at some point, that ball shattered. Okay? But everything was interpreted through that. And so, at that point where it shatters, right? That's the dark night of the soul for us. That's when we're just like...
I can understand.
Devastated. And so what do? Well, the best we know what to do is to take each piece, pick it up, look at it. Is it a piece that I want to keep? And do it piece by piece. Is this a piece I want to keep? Yes or no? Yes or no? And then you just try and move forward with the pieces that you can salvage and assemble and try and do the best that you can. But you have to examine everything. Nothing is off limits. Not the Book of Mormon, not the Bible, not prophets, not the plan of salvation, not God, not Jesus Christ. Because everything was taught to me through that lens. And to me, that lens doesn't work anymore. That ball doesn't work. It's shattered. It literally has shattered, and I never thought in a million years that I would say that.
So it sounds like you're left with nothing then.
No, I'm not left with nothing. I'm left with a beautiful, wonderful experience. It was horribly painful. But you have to understand that I firmly believe, right, that ball shattered for a reason. That I don't believe that it was the ball, the lens through which I was supposed to interpret everything. I just don't. For you, it is, and that's totally fine. I want that for you because it makes you happy, and for you, Bishop, that's great. I can honor that. But for me, that's not the case. And I don't feel like I'm left with nothing because I have lots of pieces that I can still pick up.
You said nothing was... So I guess I interpreted that to mean...
In the moment, you have nothing, yes. In the moment when it shatters. But now, that was a year ago. Now we've journeyed for a year. And we're still picking up pieces, don't get me wrong. We're still... it'll be a journey probably for the rest of our lives. It'll evolve. I don't know where I'll be in 5 years with spirituality and my beliefs on God. I really don't. But I hope to always hold to the values that we have, that we all share in common, actually.
Well, they've certainly produced good fruits. And so you can, if nothing else, that ought to be a motivation to hold to those values.
Yeah.
And I guess I would say, too, to hold to the hope that you have that Jesus Christ lives, that the plan of salvation is real, and that, that families could be together forever. Hold to that hope. Do you have any questions or anything you want to ask?
No, the only thing I would say, Leah, is you're saying that eternal life is available with all these asterisks. I don't believe that any of those asterisks are part of the plan of salvation in this life, and I think to me that's the beauty of the gospel, is that if you view what I have to do is what's done in this life and how I qualify for eternal life as this life, then yeah, there's a lot of asterisks on it. But to me, that's the beauty of the plan of salvation as it's been restored, is that it opens the understanding beyond that to say, you know what, none of that matters in this life, and in the next life there is opportunities for all that. That's why we do all the work we do in the temple, is to make that possible. So I don't believe in a God who puts asterisks like that on eternal life either. And Cody, as far as the lens, I love the analogy, and when you say that, I mean, my heart breaks when you say it. The lens that I had interpreted everything through breaks. The thing that I would encourage you to do is to, and maybe you already have, is when you pick up these pieces and say, is this still part of it or not? What guides that? What guides whether I keep that or whether I get rid of that? And if feeling isn't something that's part of it and the Holy Ghost can't play into that, then it all gets left to scientific theory and all that stuff, which is great for a lot of different things, but determining whether there's a larger being or whether Jesus Christ actually was our Savior,
Yeah.
that's not going to get you anywhere in terms of figuring that stuff out.
No, I agree with you. Yeah,
And it must be hard.
I don't believe that the scientific method is the only way to arrive at truth. And certainly as you pick up a piece and you evaluate it, you use your judgment, and feelings are part of your judgment for sure. I don't mean to I'm not trying to discount feelings. I mean, they're an important part of our experience, right? I think our only point is that they're not the most reliable way. Like, I can't ignore evidence because my emotional conclusion is this. I can't ignore the evidence that flies against that emotional conclusion.
So I'm sure that you were there, I think it was a couple of years ago at this point, gave a talk in a state conference about questions that you have, and there's still questions. And for me, it was a very helpful talk of, hey, that's a question, I don't understand it. I'm going to put it on the shelf, and maybe someday I understand it better. I've got a lot of questions on my shelf, but I've also got stuff that I know without a doubt is true. And these questions back here are questions I want to answer, but they don't get in the way of the first order questions. The first order questions are things that I know are true, and I'm not ever going to disprove any of them by the answer to those questions, even if the answer to those questions is that Joseph Smith wasn't a perfect prophet. It doesn't change to me the fact that, in my view, he is a prophet of God. He wasn't a perfect man. He made a lot of mistakes. I'm sure a lot of people documented a lot of those things. And I would add some of them which aren't actually true, because there were a lot of people who were upset at what he was doing then. So I'm never going to be able to answer the question of, is Joseph Smith a prophet of God, by answering those questions. And I didn't answer your question earlier, Leah, of what have I read. I've done a lot of research into Joseph Smith. I've read all the gospel topic essays and actually tried to understand them the best I can. And I'll be honest, as I read them, there's questions that are on my shelf as a result of that. But I've always stuck to what do I know to be true. And even if I knew the answer to that question, would it change that for me or not? No, it's not. So it goes on the shelf. I understand where you're at, and I've heard your logic of, I can't prove something is true if I can't get there. I can't start with the idea that it's true and then build my way there. I don't think that's what I've done. I don't think that's what you had done in the past. I think that you had a belief that it was true based off of actual experiences that you had. I don't think that it was just a feeling. I think that it goes beyond that. But I understand where you come from, and I absolutely don't think that the two of you have been deceived. I think you're still the great people that you were 2 years ago. I love you and your family with all my heart. But I'm sure you also understand where we come from, and we still believe that the gospel is true, and we still believe that it's not just the way for us and our families to obtain eternal life. It's the way for all of us to. But I believe that that's still possible in the next life, even if those covenants aren't in place in this life.
So now we get to the point where we are, I guess, in some of the things that are troubling to us. Mm-hmm. One of which is, the supporting the website, some of the stuff.
You mean the support group?
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Sponsoring that. And I understand what you're saying about, you're demonstrating love and reaching out to these people mm-hmm. who feel like they've been kicked out or left out of the church. And I guess the problem that I have with that is because, your motivation isn't to push them back into the church.
We don't have our motivation is love. We don't have an agenda. Like we said before, there's no agenda.
But the way that you go about providing comfort has the effect of drawing them further away from the church.
How are you making that judgment, though?
Because just based on what you're telling me.
But that doesn't, if I sit and listen to somebody's story and I validate and I listen and we connect and I say, yeah, that really sucks that your mom told you that she wished you had died before you left the church. I'm not preventing them.
If that's all you're saying,
Oh, but that's most of what happens. Sure, people will share things, and it's not like this is a conversation where you take your your church-going member, you plop them in there, and they're going to feel comfortable. I'm not saying that, but it's not a bash session. It's not like, you don't censor anything. People can get on and share. Hey, today I had a really hard day. My kids went to church and they learned this, and it just frustrates me that the church keeps teaching this. Keeps teaching my daughters that they're a licked cupcake if some, you know what I mean? So like, people sometimes get on and vent, and others will say, yeah, that stinks. That's hard or whatever. It's literally a support community, and it's not always pretty, but there is no agenda. If the website itself says, or the Facebook group says, our goal is just to support and love, and anybody's welcome who wants to be a part of the group, as long as you respect others, and that's like the only rule, that we respect each other. And there's a lot of fear from people, probably, or people look at it and think, oh, the Youngs, their group is growing, and they're whatever, they're trying to get people away, or they're drawing people away, and it's just not the case. I mean, I don't know how to say it any other way. It's not the case. We've never advertised, never approached anybody about it. It's just word gets out that the Youngs are where they are, and they're considered safe to somebody who feels maybe unsafe in the church, or for whatever reason feels like they're not fitting in or belonging, and they're questioning and doubting. And
I think most of the members come through other people in the group, because they're strangers to us.
Yeah. So
no, most of the people we don't know.
I mean, the validation, and then so you're saying that on that. I mean, when you started out, you listed all these books and sources and all that kind of stuff.
They're everywhere on the internet. Everywhere.
But do those come up in your...
Oh, of course. Like, this is what people are reading. This is why people are leaving the church. Right. I mean, yeah, of course those things are discussed. And it's great because we can't discuss those in the church, right? So it's like there's no pointing the finger. You're wrong. We're blaming you. It's like, yeah, I mean, why can't we talk about those things? It's not, it's not anti-Mormon information. That's the thing. It's legit. It's legit fact. So yeah, are those books talked about? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, when it's
some of it's legit fact. It's been misinterpreted or misunderstood.
But when you see the same information time and time and time again, I mean, how many times can you talk about anachronisms in the Book of Mormon? It's not one person's opinion. It just is. There's anachronisms in the Book of Mormon. It's not, are we interpreting this right? Are we not? There's anachronisms in the Book of Mormon, period. Here are the top 50 problems with the Book of Mormon. Anachronisms is one of them. It's not that it's being interpreted wrong. So yeah, do those things get talked about? Probably. I mean, probably. Take any one issue, sure. Does the Book of Abraham, will someone throw up a documentary about the Book of Abraham? Probably. Those things would happen. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the information is not stoppable at this point. It's in every group. It's in every support group.
It's one thing to be not stoppable. It's another to sponsor a place where that happens.
We're just trying to love and support, and we don't think that there's shame in discussing factual information and providing a safe place for that to happen, because the church just doesn't. The church just doesn't. Someone can't raise their hand and be like, well, actually, let's talk about the funerary text and why this isn't the Book of Abraham. I mean, can you imagine having that conversation in Sunday school?
Well, it's probably not an appropriate place to have that conversation. But you say there's not a safe place to have it. I would say there is.
Okay.
But it's not in a group setting.
Where is the safe place?
I think you need to talk to the church leaders and bring up those issues.
People have been trying to for forever, but they sit here and the church leaders don't have the same information. Because when you're sitting with someone face to face and they're like, we know it's true, period, end of story. And you're like, okay, that's fine. but we have clearly we're not on the same page here. It's not safe for me to have a conversation with you, or even we went to the lead apologist on the Book of Mormon and had a conversation with him. He couldn't answer the questions. You know what I mean?
So maybe you're going to release me after I say this, but we had a discussion in here just 3 weeks ago with the priests about the DNA essay and the gospel topic essays. We talked about it. We went through the list of the gospel topic essays and said, all right, guys, what are you interested in hearing about? And they said, we want to study about this. And I sat in here and taught them a lesson from it. We had who come in who's a DNA specialist, and we talk about, well, what does all this really mean, and are there really questions about it? Yeah, there are questions, but
That's great.
That's good.
So I think that there can be forums to do that, and I actually have encouraged members of our wards, especially those with older youth, that hey, you need to talk about this, because I believe that reading the gospel topic essays with a mind toward, I really want to understand this, but I'm coming from a place where I believe that the church is true, but I want to understand what's in here and see what questions there are.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you do that, there's actually a lot of faith-promoting stuff that's in there, in understanding that the narrative is maybe a little bit more complex than we've talked about.
Can you accept that there are people that sit down with their bishop and stake president who don't know anything about the gospel topic essays?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So there. That's not. But that's not a safe space, right? Because you can imagine that if you're being confronted with this material that's supposedly on the church website that you know nothing about as the priesthood authority in that unit, it's not. It very rarely. Talking to people, it rarely goes well.
So I think that's becoming more and more a minority. I think that at this point, if you're a bishop and you don't know what's in the gospel topic essays,
I hope so.
We hope so. That's not really, though, what's happening.
Yeah,
we hear.
We happen to have great leaders in this ward who are open to these things.
That is not the case.
Until the church until an apostle gets up at the pulpit at general conference and gives a talk, or lets everybody know that the gospel topic essays are there and what they contain, what the topics are.
I'm going to go home and research that, because I'm pretty sure that I learned about the gospel topic essays from something one of the general authorities said, and I'm like, oh, I want to go read that. I'll go find it. I'll send it to you.
Until there is church-wide
awareness,
education and awareness on these topics, it is not fair. I'm sorry, it's not fair to say that the safe space is with your local leaders. It could be for us, but many of the people in these support groups have either tried, are scared to try, or just don't believe that it can be a safe space for them. So they're scared. And fear is a huge component of what people feel when their crystal ball starts to shatter, starts to break. When the cracks start to form, they get really scared. And they might have had experiences with friends or family who had bad experiences too when they started to be more public or come to people with their questions or disbelief. So it's a very complex, I wish that were true. I really do. I disagree with you with all respect. I disagree that this is a safe space. I disagree that there's anywhere in the church that's a safe space for somebody to discuss openly with others the difficult messiness of the church. And so the goal of the support group is just to love and provide a space for people who feel, and maybe they don't even want to come and talk about the issues. Maybe they've just decided on, and this is actually the case, I think, for many people in the group. They're where we are. They don't want to come back to the church. They don't want it. Okay? Or maybe they really do, but they're like us. It's like, I just can't go back. The crystal ball has shattered. So now what do I do? And they've gone through these very difficult situations where they're ostracized or whatever they've experienced, and they feel like they've lost friendships, and they just want support. They want somebody who understands. I was telling you, you've been in a submarine for 3 months with men who will understand you like nobody else can understand you. And we get together in these support groups, and they can understand what I've been through in a way that you just can't, because you haven't been through it.
Agreed.
That's the beauty of it. It's that connectedness. It's that unconditional love, where we can just connect And it's not about me taking you out of the church, because you already took yourself out of the church most of the time. Mostly people, like, I left the church 3 years ago, or, it's...
Or 10 years ago, and I just haven't had friends, and I'm so thankful to find you guys.
So I think that the group, as we talked about this before, I think the part of the Facebook group that concerned me the most was when we talked about that it ranged all the way from people who were no longer members of the church to people who were still actively attending church meetings.
That maybe, there are.
That's the part. I think that's the part that really makes me feel like, well, if those people are part of the group, and I get the fact that it's not like people can hide from this information. You can hide people from information, but when you're actively sponsoring a group that's putting this stuff in people's faces, that is pulling people away from the gospel.
From what I know,
do we agree on that?
We have.
I don't agree.
I don't agree, first of all, but I also don't think. I think I know of one person. Typically, the case is that the person in the support group is only going to keep their marriage alive. That's the only person I know of.
Or this is the agreement in their marriage. Their spouse knows they don't agree, but they agree that they'll go to, like...
Went for years.
He still goes, and, people like that,
They know the issues. They go because they have to.
But if somebody came, if somebody came to me from the ward and said, last week I read all this information and my world's crumbling and my wife doesn't understand me, she thinks I'm crazy, and my parents think I'm crazy, and I feel so alone, I would say, come over.
You're not alone.
Come over for dinner. You're not alone. We love you. I don't have any desire to sit down and share information with you. That's truthfully not any of my desire. I have no agenda as to whether you go back to the church or not. But what I do know is that you're in a very scary place. You feel very scared. And it's a really difficult place to be in. And what you need is love and friendship and support. And it's actually what I still need, is love and friendship and support. And so I reach out to people that can understand me. And if they say, and if they learn about the Facebook group and he says, hey, I want to be a part of the Facebook group, I'm not going to say no, you can't, because Bishop doesn't want me to. That wouldn't be the kind thing, in my opinion, to do, because there are people that can understand exactly what he's going through, and it's not just me. Maybe he connects with some other guy who's also in a mixed faith marriage. His wife believes, and how are they doing it? What has this person done in his marriage to help his wife to feel safe?
It doesn't feel like free will. It doesn't feel like free will when there's all this control around the narrative, what questions you can ask, who you can associate with. We have people who have completely disassociated with us just so they can answer the question, the temple recommend question. And that doesn't help anyone. Do you associate with anybody who disagrees with the church? Do you know of, that question? The only way that we can cope, come face to face with all of these people who are who we've shown up in their lives in love, support, respect, we honor your path, all of that, who is just block, you're done, never talk to us again. The only way we can figure that is because of the temple recommend question. So it doesn't really feel like the church teaches free will. But when there's all this fear about us supporting other people, where there's all this fear about, well, what if someone's here? And that feeling of control doesn't, to me, feel like free will. I shared in this podcast I shared that when I went to look at the information, because I had a friend who was struggling, I wasn't worried at all. I truly was completely unaware of the issues. No idea. CES letter, never heard of it. Letter to my wife, Mormon origins, Grant Palmer, none of it. Didn't know any of it. Book of Mormon DNA, anachronisms, wheels, coins, nothing. Polyandry, nothing. I knew none of it. So I was not scared. But if we're so scared about people passing on true historical information, if we're so gripped with fear, there just seems to be so much fear. And I'm just wondering, where is the free will? Where is the free will? Because it feels, there's sort of this meme that goes around, and it's you can ask the approved answers, you can ask the approved questions, and you can search the approved sources, and you can come to the approved conclusions. And if that isn't what you do, you're out. You know what I mean? And so why? Why? Why is there fear? If it is the one and only true church.
When you say free will, I guess I'm not sure I understand what your definition is.
Well, what if someone wants to join the Facebook group? Why is there fear?
They have their choice to do that.
But why do you feel so much fear around it?
I don't feel fear.
Or worry?
Because I'm worried that they're going to be drugged down places where it's going to challenge their faith even more.
But do you believe that it is the most courageous and brave thing for someone to actually dive deep and look at the information and be able on their own, with their own free will, their own intellect, their own mind, their own heart, to come to their own conclusion? Or do you feel responsible?
Everybody has that opportunity to do that.
I think that the lens that you look at that stuff through changes a lot of the way that's interpreted. And I think that if it's presented in a way where it's in a group of people who believe that this is the fact that I'm giving you and it proves that the church isn't true and is presented in that way, that's much different than somebody who goes out on their own and says, I have this question and I want to understand this. And that's I think the thing that concerns me about this is the way that it's presented and who it is presenting it and all the framing that goes around it.
But
it's not so much the fact that you're presenting information that's available everywhere, because it's available to anybody. It's more of the framing and the way that it's done. And the fact that it's done in a group that's meant to support people who aren't part of the church, but I don't think that there's any way that doesn't lead to, and you've said a lot of venting about the church and that sort of thing.
So what's the end game? What are you?
I think that we're asking you to stop.
Okay, I'm not willing to. Okay? The purpose of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and in my opinion, any other church, any other Christian church, is to point people to Christ. Right? Would you agree? Okay. That's the goal of the church. Okay? Because the church should believe that Christ is the source of salvation. Okay?
And answers.
And answers. This comes, your request, first of all, it feels like censorship, and it comes from a place of fear. Not your fear, but the church. I think the church is afraid, right? And I believe that you are very good men, but I think that the church has put you in a very difficult position. The church, I believe, has in this setting, because this is not a unique thing where people are asked to stop doing this, that, or the other, the church has apostatized from the gospel of Jesus Christ. You, as representatives of the church, are asking us to turn our backs on people who feel lonely, scared, rejected, judged. You're asking me not to love somebody.
No.
You're asking me to shut down a source of comfort for them, a source of friendship for them. When some of them, not all of them, but some of them feel very alone, right? Like, I'm sorry, but I think that that's a Christ-like thing to do, to offer love, right? You don't need to be afraid of this support group, because the reality is the church doesn't offer anything for these people who have concluded that the church isn't true. The church doesn't offer anything. It's not your fault. The church doesn't offer. The church says, repent and return. Repent and return. That's like or stay in the boat. Just wait, we'll find answers after we die. That's the last thing these people want to hear. They've made courageous decisions. They feel, you can argue whether they are not, but they feel like they've made the most courageous decision in their life. I feel like we've made the most courageous decision. And we've suffered, we've had beautiful interactions with many people, but there has been some real carnage in our lives because of it. And for many of these people, that's their story too. So what? If the church doesn't offer anything for them, why can't we offer friendship and love and support? And that's why I say I'm not willing to take down the support group. I'm not willing to stop being a part of it.
I guess the problem that I have is, as a member of the church, supporting this group, I think, is contrary to what we would like.
Okay, but my question to you is, are you more concerned about the name of the church, or are you more concerned about Christ's teachings?
I think we're more concerned about the people who are being led away from the covenants that will lead them.
There's nobody in the group that is being led away by anybody else. And I'll say we post less than anyone else in that group. All we do is we ask questions to make sure the person's safe to get in. We ask questions that we don't want active believing members of the church in our group. We don't want those people. So we ask questions to vet people to make sure that it's a good fit. That's the only thing that we do. We do not run the group. We do not put money into the group. We create a safe space by vetting people before they get into the group. That's what we do. So I think there's a lot of assumption that goes into what's happening in the group.
But the fact of the matter is, until you started it, the group didn't exist.
But the people were there and they were lonely.
Did you read what the people said?
I read all.
You did?
I read all of them. It was like 12 pages. Yeah. I read them all.
I think many of those comments were ones of, I'm grateful this space is here. I'm grateful that not just our space, because there's lots of other spaces out there. And I felt love. I felt support. I mean,
and I don't doubt any of that. But the beliefs that are manifested in that group are not consistent with the beliefs that are in the church.
Okay, but what happens there is unconditional Christ-like love.
And that's fine. If they get support to where it supports where they believe and where they are, that's fine. But to be, Cody and Leah Young represent this group who are members of the church. And they have this group you can come in and talk to, which doesn't believe anything the church teaches.
Which is mourning the loss of something that they loved and feel betrayed.
Do you see a disconnect there? And do you see how somebody might say, well, Cody and Leah are still members of the church and they're supporting this group?
We do not. I never have introduced myself to somebody as a believing member of the church. People don't know whether I've been excommunicated, resigned, or if I go every Sunday. They don't know. And people here in locally know that I never go. So it's never like...
What's your status?
I mean, first of all, nobody's following me, right? I don't want to be a leader of this group. We just organized it. Okay, so nobody's following me. There is no leader. It's not a religion. It's just a friendship group. That's all it is.
Well, and then there's the you said you did a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I know you also did some with John Dehlin.
That was a podcast.
Is that the one you're talking about?
I would encourage you to watch it.
And we did. I didn't watch all 4 hours of it, but
no, there's 7 hours.
Okay, well, I watched an hour and a half.
Okay. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's publicly putting that stuff out there like that, and I know what his intentions are. I know what his status is.
He's excommunicated.
Yes.
Because he gives people a platform. Now, I know John Dehlin personally. And John,
yeah, he stayed at your house. I mean,
he's been one of the kindest people unconditionally in our lives. He has saved our marriage through this. We were at a retreat with him for 3 days. People get upset with John because he's so kind and gracious about the church. I mean, John was the one who said, Leah, don't share anything with Cody. Make him feel safe. Make him feel loved. And I get a little bit frustrated because I hear time and again, all these people, they know John Dehlin. It's like, no. You know the rumors about John Dehlin.
Well,
you know what other people say about John Dehlin.
I posted about, his excommunication and stuff like that. I've read some of the things and listened to some of the things he's talked about.
Well, we know John Dehlin as a personal friend and as someone who's helping tens of thousands. His objective, people always say, what's John's objective? What's John's, motive? And John went back to get a PhD to help families and spouses survive the Mormon faith crisis. I think John is doing more for the church, more good for the church. He is helping keep families and marriages together in mixed faith couples. He really supports honor differentiation. He has been excommunicated for speaking truth, for giving people freedom to share their story. Sam Young's been excommunicated for bringing to light sexual abuse cases. Hey, we could be excommunicated for hosting a support group. I would hope that people, instead of pointing fingers at us and criticizing the agenda that we have, that they would care more to zoom in and get to know us. Because we could be labeled apostates for running a support group. And we know personally the stories now of Kate Kelly, of all these people who are apostates. They seem to be some of the most Hans Matz and Tom Phillips. They're wonderful people.
In reality, you are, though, right?
We are what?
Apostates. Because you do not believe what the church teaches. That by definition, doesn't that make you an apostate?
By definition of the church, yeah. That's the label that we're
What's the
given.
definition of apostate? Somebody who doesn't believe anymore in the doctrine that's taught by the church.
I don't believe in the doctrine that's taught by the church. I don't disbelieve all of it, but I don't believe the truth claims of the church. There are many teachings of the church, like as we've discussed, that I still want to believe and that I still hold on to. So I don't think it's fair to say that as it pertains to the truth claims of the church, yeah, I guess I'm an apostate because I don't believe the truth claims of the church, that it's the one and only true church on the face of the earth. Yeah. So I guess guilty as charged, but it doesn't mean that I don't want the church to be a healthy organization. I think that the conversation we're having right now is a manifestation of unhealthiness in the church. I don't think a healthy organization demands uniformity, demands people to follow. I think if the church has no need to fear this group.
So we haven't demanded anything, we've asked.
Okay.
I said I think we're asking you to do that. We haven't demanded anything. Are you in agreement?
But what's okay, so I say no, then what?
Then we have to consider what the next step is.
See, then it's not really a request. It's really a demand that's...
Well, it is a request. And then you have your free will to decide whether...
But it is an ultimatum if my answer is not sufficient. If my answer isn't honored as being a valid answer because it's heartfelt in what I believe is true, then it's more than just a question. It's actually a demand. It's actually an ultimatum. It's you need to do this or
Well,
this.
I mean, in effect, though, you've already taken that step.
Taken what step?
To move yourself out of the church. Right?
Yeah, I don't go to church, but it's not...
The fact that you don't believe the doctrine, you don't believe the truth of it.
So here's where the whole families can be together forever becomes really problematic for a lot of people in the church.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you leave, you lose your friends, you break your family's heart, truly. They think you're potentially going to hell, that you've lost your way. Then you take the name of the records off. So this guy who feels like he's already broken his family's heart has to be faced with either break it more, right? It's like, it's so unfair. It's like we're trying to do the best we know how to follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, not of
as are we.
The Mormon Church, okay? But if it were up to me, we would have taken our name off the record of the church, okay? But I have to honor him and his desire to love and to not hurt his family more than he's already hurt his family. So the church really puts us in a very difficult position.
Well, I wouldn't say that. What I would say is you kind of put us in a difficult situation.
No, the church puts us...
Because in trying to in defending the church, which is our responsibility, you have right now, you're standing as good members of the church who've made covenants and who, by all accounts, are not necessarily keeping those covenants.
This is where I object, though, because this is where, the church is supposed to point you to Christ. The church isn't the thing that we're supposed to be honoring. We're supposed to honor Christ. And I feel like Christ loves and cares about these people who have left the church. I think we all in this room agree that.
Exactly.
And I think Christ wants them to feel supported and wants them to feel loved. And I think Christ, if he's up there, knows the church can't do it. The church is refusing to do it. I don't know why. Maybe the church isn't capable. Part of that is them owning the messiness of their history, coming clean. The church won't do it. Until they do, it's not a safe space for these people. It's not safe for us.
So Cody, in the New Testament, I think we can all agree that Christ didn't comfort everybody that he came in contact with, right?
No, but I believe that, absolutely true. At least that's what the record says. Okay, but it also is replete with times when he was with the sinner, when he sat with the sinner. And this is what The church teaches that we are. Okay? He left the 99 and went to the one.
Correct.
Okay? That's what Christ did. And I'm not saying like we're ambassadors of Christ. All I'm saying is the church in this idea that you, and again, you are the representatives of the church right now. The church is asking you to protect its name, right? It's asking you to protect its name by having this conversation with us. And I think that the church shouldn't be so concerned about protecting its name. The church should be more concerned with directing people to Christ, right? And not demanding. It should ask for people to follow. It shouldn't demand that we follow, right? It shouldn't be so fearful that this Columbus, Ohio Transitions group exists. I don't know what we're fearing.
So there's no demands. It's literally a request.
Okay.
There are consequences with everything in life, and I can't stop any of that. There are consequences with every decision we make. It's a request.
Can you understand how your request feels like censorship?
I think that because of constraints that you're putting on it, if I can understand that.
Can you see how your request makes me feel like I'm supposed to abandon people?
But I guess what I would ask you, can you see how your request to remain in the church when you totally disagree with it?
But I never put myself out there as I'm Cody Young, active member of the Church of Jesus Christ.
You're doing podcasts.
We did one podcast,
But
the first half of the podcast, the first 3.5 hours, was establishing that you were members of the church and were faithful members of the church.
It was what is your story? We told our story.
But that's the story that was put out there is, hey, look, these are active, faithful members of the church who, the second half of the podcast, don't believe in the church, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
And there's hundreds of thousands of more stories out there like it. You know what?
Yeah,
Lifestyle After Mormonism Instagram account.
But we're not talking about them. We're talking about you, though.
But here's the thing, and here's why we're willing to sit here, is because it's gonna have to change. It is changing. There's outside pressure changing the church. The reasons for the temple changing, I'm sorry, it is not because they have divine inspiration. It's because people are leaving the church. It's because women have been asking for these changes. There's all this information, and it's available, and it's out there. So the reason that we're sitting here is because we're trying to say, we only have so much that we can do. And you only have so much that you can do. But I believe that even just the four of us, we can make a difference in the church, right? And you can be the people who say, oh, wait a minute, maybe we should be more concerned about loving than about being right and protecting the name of the church. Maybe we can be one and the same. Maybe we can have the same goals and the same objective. Maybe we can make history here in Columbus, Ohio, so that we can love and serve not out of fear, but out of a desire to follow Christ's teachings. That is all we're trying to do.
I mean, the church has certain doctrine, certain beliefs that are taught. And those who agree to that doctrine are baptized and become members of the church. And those that don't believe it, why do they want to be in the church? I mean, I understand.
We've effectively left the church.
Right.
All right? If I'm excommunicated, do you understand what that does to my children in this community?
Yes.
Okay.
But you don't believe that.
I don't believe what?
That it does anything to them.
Oh.
Eternally.
No, I agree. I'm talking about in this community. The shame that they'll endure because now they're children of an apostate, right? And maybe people already think that. That's what's troubling. That's what's troubling.
There are people out there who feel that way, probably.
How will my father feel? Right? So yes, I'm effectively out of the church, and I never would ever, in any.
So how does that change him then?
How does it change?
If you say you're effectively out of the church.
Maybe you could answer that if it were your son, right? You wouldn't want him to remove his names from the record of the church, would you?
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But he's got his choice to be able to do that.
I understand that. But if I do that, I'm just further breaking his heart.
So just to clarify, Cody, we don't want you to either, right? We want you to disband the group.
Okay.
That's honestly, like, as I drive in here today thinking about this conversation, my heart's desire is that you'll do this.
I just don't understand how people who profess to follow Jesus Christ could read those comments, could read them, and could sit here and say, disband that group, with those people who said that this has been their safest place. How does that make any sense?
Leah, because I believe that the covenants that they're being comforted and being away from, and in some cases being pulled away from, are the things that will save them eternally. That's
and
the
I
reason.
believe that if the church had a good option for them, I would disband. If there was a good option for them, first of all, I wouldn't have formed the group, and I would disband. But because I firmly believe that there is not another good option.
Well, the ministry program of the church is designed exactly for that. It may not always be perfect, and it may not comfort people in the way they want to be comforted, but ultimately the objective of that program is for people exactly like that.
And people will bring Elder Redland's talk. And
that would
do you
be
see
a
what I'm
mistake.
saying? Like
No,
this,
even I can see that would be the wrong way to have that conversation.
But it's happening.
That's what I'm
It's
saying.
already
People-
happened.
People are
It's
imperfect.
not- yes.
But it is the intent of that program.
Okay. And so, okay, we are not willing to disband the group. Okay? I'm not willing to do it. I just won't. So I guess the next step is
We need to have a discussion. But certainly, I mean, my initial reaction would be there would probably have to be some church discipline. And so, and the decision would need to be made.
so because we won't disband the group,
And publicly
There's-
support.
and we did a podcast.
Well,
And
Sharing our
and-
story
and-
where we said we love the church, we wish it were true. We love the people of the church. I would really encourage you to listen to all 7 hours because it'll help you empathize with teenagers who go through this.
So I did listen to every word in the section of Brinley talk.
Thank you.
So the audience of that podcast is nobody who meets here on Sunday, actually. Its design is for people
But
who
it's
are in
out-
these
but
support
it's out
groups who are
publicly, though.
Sure,
But who
sure.
are the people most likely to listen to this? People who know Cody and Leah, who see you posting it on your Facebook, and
Okay.
what's this all about? Like it is the people
But why
who are
is
most
there
likely to
shame in our?
listen to it.
Why should we be in the shadows? Why is there shame? Why is there shame? It is not our fault? It is not our fault that the church narrative isn't what it claims to be. It's not our fault. And Brene Brown says the only way to take shame out of a story is to put sunlight on it. We actually feel we're helping people. We know we are because I spend 5 to 6 hours a day responding to people who are in a dark time, who we've helped to, the core values, and you're helping me understand how to handle my spouse this way. Why do we have to be quiet? When all of my friends can put up, follow the prophet and the temple, that's fine, and I like it, and yay, I'm so happy for you, good luck with your
Nobody's
son on
saying
the
you
mission.
can't do that.
Okay.
But as a member of the church, I think it's inappropriate. Because being a member of the church, you're saying, this is not right, but I'm a member of the church.
And so because we have a support group and because we did a podcast,
And because you publicly support,
I have a 12-year-old daughter who's looking forward to going to girls' camp this summer.
she's welcome.
Absolutely welcome.
Yeah.
And I promise
Yeah.
you that she will be loved every minute that she's there by every leader and all the
You
girls who are
can't
there.
control how people will, and I'm not saying that I hope that nothing would happen, but I know people who have been excommunicated, right? John is one of them. John talked to us at length about what it was like for his children. Now, he's a very public figure, so it's probably a little bit different, okay, granted, but his children have suffered greatly. They had to move. They had to move from Logan to Salt Lake City to get away, right? And I don't think that would happen to our children, but in this community, there is absolutely a stigma, right,
Cody,
placed on people.
I promise you that every leader we have in the young men's and young women's organization and every youth we have loves your family and your girls.
I believe you. I believe
And
you. But
they would
there-
be absolutely welcome.
I believe you. But if I'm excommunicated, right, there is a stigma. That I'm not saying I'm not saying the leaders won't love my kids, right? But there is a stigma in this community. And it's just a fact, and you can't control that, right? And I don't want that for my children. And I don't want it for my father, right? I don't want my father to be the father of an excommunicated member of the church because he had a support group to try and love people, and he did a podcast to share his story.
How is Christ in that? I mean, how would it look for the church if we said, if we had people who love us, who have been helped by us, who fly in to come and support us, and they would do it they're ready and waiting. They would love to come support us. And we stand outside after being excommunicated. We say, we've been excommunicated from the church because we host a support group where we strive to love others, to mourn with those who mourn, and comfort those who stand in need of comfort. And because we shared our heartbreaking story to give others the tools to found their families upon core values, to strive to help their marriages. And we have now been labeled apostates and excommunicated. How does that look? Like, how would you feel like you're representatives of Jesus Christ sitting and judging us for those two reasons?
Well, again, you've made the choice.
And you have a choice. You have a choice.
No, I do have a choice. But my obligation is to protect the doctrine, protect the church, name of the church, and all that. And that's what my obligation is.
Protect the members.
And to protect the members.
Okay, but
so in Christ, you say, why is that a Christ-like? Well, Christ, at the end of this life, he's going to stand there as a judge of everybody. Okay? And he's going to make some decisions and say, sorry.
I don't think he's going to say sorry. I don't.
I agree with that. He's not going to say so. He's going to say, I'm sorry that I couldn't save you because of the choices that you made. That's what he's going to say.
Is he going to say that to the African kids who didn't accept Jesus?
He's going to say that. He's going to say it to everybody
after they've had
who's
a
had
chance
every
to.
opportunity to accept it.
Even the billions of people who lived before written record.
What justification why could he create a plan that wouldn't include everybody?
Exactly.
Right. And that's part of the gospel doctrine that the church teaches. That is available and will be available for everybody. And again, thank goodness that he's the final judge on all that. He will know when everybody has had the opportunity to accept it and when they've actually rejected it. He will be the final judge.
But you get to be the judge now.
That's what my calling is. And again, to protect the name of the church, protect the members, and keep the doctrine pure.
Who's protecting the people who feel alone, who feel, and I'm not saying that I'm protecting them, but we're not like the stewards of these people. But the point is like, I guess where we're at is we're like, I can disband the group, another group will form. The group will go on. I mean, that's just the reality.
I mean, we can go disband it.
They're all friends.
We have people who've said, we'll sit and we'll do this for you. There's people that...
It's not going away, and it's not going to get smaller.
I know, but the problem is, from the position of being a member of the church, you're out there publicly putting this stuff out there.
We're not publicly putting anything out. I don't know how many times we have to say this. Most of the people in the group are strangers. We don't advertise
what about
it.
The podcast?
We did mention it in the podcast. Yes, we did.
Any Facebook posts that you have?
Never in a Facebook post.
Not personal Facebook posts.
Only within the group. We have never published it in a personal Facebook post.
You can go back and look at all of our personal Facebook posts. I've never said anything about the church, ever.
I said one thing about a faith transition in one of my posts, but I have the freedom to do that.
And then Leah posted the podcast, which again, why this is our story. Why can't we share our story? Never at any point did I say,
story.
Contact us if you're just miserable and want to get away from the church. It wasn't that. It was like, here's our story, and we did it because we feel like there are people who our story will resonate with, provide comfort or strength or support, and our experience has been dozens of people have contacted us and said, thank you.
And in support groups throughout the U.S., we're doing the core values.
I don't doubt that.
But here's the thing:
people are reaching out to try to find that comfort to help them. I don't doubt that.
But then we go and say, yeah, you're welcome. We were excommunicated.
Yeah, and you know what? Here's what happens.
Because I don't believe this anymore.
But how are they going to feel? How are they going to feel? Like the Youngs were brave. That's what they say. I don't think we're super brave, but people have said, you guys are so brave. They were willing to share publicly, and they were excommunicated for it.
But the fact of the matter, most of those people are they're non-believers at that point anyway.
Yeah, you're right, but a lot of their names are on the record of the church because they're living in fear of hurting their family members, and this is the circular issue. So here's the thing. We could not be the admins of the group anymore. No problem. There are 50 other people who will pick it up like that, and they will maybe have the same conversation, or they won't be quite as brave and courageous and be honest that they're providing this support. So that was a choice, because I could never imagine that it would be problematic. So I shared it with I'm like, yeah, we have a support group. It's phenomenal. This is what we're doing. Okay. But I would say most of the admins in most of these groups aren't telling their bishops, aren't telling their stake presidents. I personally feel like I'm not doing anything wrong. I think we're doing something good. So someone else can pick it up tomorrow, and they can either keep it a secret from you, which would just, if we're excommunicated, and when people are excommunicated, it further others people. That's why so many of the admins of these groups are not having these conversations, because guess what? They know they're going to get excommunicated. And so if you choose to do that, if I have people in my business, here's what's happening to me right now. I have people who were in these support groups before I got into the support groups in my business. I get into them and I'm like, holy cow, there's these people on my team. They're non-believers. Not until the second I get in the support group am I safe. I get in the support group, they're like, oh my gosh, Leah's safe. They reach out to me. They tell me their stories, their difficulties. I love them. I validate them. I encourage them. Okay? Then Leah goes on the podcast to help others. That was our goal, to help others. Then what happens? Unfriend, block, top leaders on my team. You're off my team page. You're off. And here's what happens. The ripple effect is all of these people who are closeted non-believers, they say, we hear the rumors about your family. First of all, thank you so much for being brave. I could never do what you did because I couldn't take the hurt and pain of the way people would judge me. Okay, so we're willing to put that on us. But now I've got all these people in my team who feel like, gosh, here's what's going to happen if I'm truthful with my unbelief. I'm going to be blocked. I'm going to be labeled. I'm going to be gossiped about. And I just don't think I can do that. So it's systemic, and it's problematic.
But there are many, I can probably share names with you of members who have joined the church who had the same thing happen to them because they joined the church.
Absolutely. And that is why unconditional love should be paramount.
Unconditional love is different. And like I said, nothing that any consequence of this isn't going to change the unconditional love that we have for you. It's just not.
So I have people that say to me, Leah,
I'm talking about me. I can't judge what other people would say. But this is not being done out of a spirit of hate or spite or anything like that. That's not why we're here.
The people who block us on Facebook, they say the same thing.
Okay.
And it just doesn't feel very truthful.
And you know what? There are people out there when it comes to politics, but they don't want to talk. They don't want to hear from the liberal right or the liberal left. Those around, they block all that. They don't want to hear it because they just don't believe it and they don't want to hear it. Mm-hmm. And I would equate that to the same thing here.
No, because
I don't know if it's necessarily out of a, okay, we don't love them anymore or anything like that. It's just, I don't want to hear what they have to say. I'm settled in my beliefs, and I will still love them, and I'll still associate with them, but I don't want to hear that they have to say.
So why?
And that's how I would block somebody, is because I don't want to hear that. And I do the same thing with my relatives when they want to talk about even some of the ultra-right stuff. It's like, okay, you guys are crazy. I don't want to hear that. I just ignore it.
Okay. I think the difference between politics and religion is in religion we talk about, especially in Mormonism, we talk a lot about following Christ. And I think that politics is a little bit different.
You're exactly right. But I'm just saying it's a difference of opinion and beliefs. So I think that's kind of where we are. And I think we need to have some discussion after this and decide really what the next steps are.
Okay.
We appreciate you coming in.
Mhm.
And, I wanted to emphasize again the fact that we don't wish you any ill will. We still love you, and we're concerned about your family. We think you have a great family. And we wish you the best.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else you have to say, Bishop?
I've already said that I love you guys, love your family. Nothing's going to change that. And I know that I can understand that. I can understand how you might feel, how you feel about this. I think that I guess I've said over the last month or so, I think the difference in perspective is just we fundamentally don't believe the same things anymore, so it shapes our perspective and the way that we view things. And I can see how you see it. I hope that you can see the way that we see it as well.